So today we're unpacking a moment of just, well, absolute shock that pretty much every physician faces when they make that big leap from being an employed W-2 staff member to an independent 1099 locum tenens stock. You know the drill. You sign the contract, you work the hours, the gross pay looks absolutely incredible, and then, bam, tax season hits. Suddenly you realize there's this massive new liability that literally nobody at the agency warned you about. But as we're going to see today, that shock doesn't have to be the end of the story. In fact, it's really just the beginning of a massive financial opportunity, assuming you know exactly where to look in the tax code.
Okay, so what if I told you that a locum physician bringing in $300,000 in net income can legally shelter over $90,000 of that money from federal income tax? I know, no way, right? It sounds totally impossible, especially if you're used to those rigid confines of W-2 taxation where your employer handles the whole shebang and your deduction options are, let's face it, incredibly limited. But listen, this isn't some shady loophole. This is entirely by design. To get to this $90,000 shelter, we just have to completely flip how you view independent contractor status. We're turning it from a burden into an incredible advantage.
But first, we kind of have to expose the painful problem here. Why do W-2 converts feel so blindsided? Well, it all comes down to this number, 15.3%, the dreaded self-employment tax. Back when you were a W-2 employee, you only ever saw half of your payroll taxes. That's 7.65%. You probably didn't even think about it much, right? But as a 1099 locum physician, you aren't just the employee anymore. You are the business. And the IRS, yeah, they expect you to pay both halves. That's a full 15.3% tax slapped right on top of your ordinary federal and state income taxes. Ouch.
To really put that into perspective, on a $300,000 net locum income, that self-employment tax alone is over $28,000. That's literally just money flying right out of your pocket before your standard income tax brackets even begin to apply. And this is exactly why a higher gross hourly rate doesn't automatically equal higher net take-home pay. Honestly, without a proactive strategy, you're just working harder to fund a much larger tax bill. Let's look at it this way. As a W-2 employee, your employer quietly absorbed half of your payroll obligations, they funded your malpractice, they managed your benefits, you literally never saw the gross cost of employing you. But now, as a 1099 locum, every single one of those costs is transferred directly to your shoulders. If you operate your 1099 business exactly like you did as a W-2 employee, doing zero tax planning, you're simply going to absorb that massive hit.
But here's where the narrative completely shifts, and it's a real game changer. As the source material points out, 1099 status comes with deductions W-2 employees simply cannot access. We really need to stop viewing 1099 status as just this heavy tax burden and start viewing it as an exclusive wealth-building toolkit. The IRS totally recognizes that you're bearing the full weight of a business now, so they actually give you the tools to offset it. And without a doubt, the most powerful tools in that hidden arsenal are designed specifically for your retirement.
Section 1. The heavy hitters, solo 401k and SEP-IRA.
Okay, so when it comes to actually shielding locum income from taxes, the solo 401k is an absolute cornerstone. It's designed specifically for self-employed folks who have no full-time employees other than themselves or a spouse. And the real magic of the solo 401k? It lies entirely in your dual status. Because you are both the employee and the employer of your locum business, you get to make contributions from both sides of the equation. This unique structure maximizes your contribution potential way beyond a standard corporate 401k.
Now, the second tool is the SEP-IRA, which stands for Simplified Employee Pension IRA. This is a super straightforward, powerful alternative. With a SEP-IRA, the contribution math is strictly percentage-based. Acting as the employer, you can contribute up to 25% of your net self-employment income right into this account. Now, it doesn't have those dual contribution mechanics of the solo 401k, but it offers incredibly simple administration and, for sure, still allows for massive tax-deferred growth. When you break down the 2026 math side by side, the difference becomes crystal clear. Check this out. With a solo 401k, you've got an employee base limit of $23,500. Then you can add an employer contribution of up to 25% of your net income. Plus, and this is great, if you're age 50 or older, there's a $7,500 catch-up. The SEP-IRA, well, it lacks that employee base and the catch-up provision entirely. And that right there is exactly why the solo 401k can often push your total shelter potential well over $70,000 in a single year.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this. We're talking about a dollar-for-dollar tax reduction. Every single dollar you contribute to these specific retirement accounts directly lowers your adjusted gross income. You're taking money that would have been taxed at your highest marginal federal rate, money that was on a one-way trip to the IRS, and actively defending it by moving it into your own long-term wealth bucket.
Moving right along to Section 2, the $90,000 shelter, the 2026 playbook.
All right, let's build this shelter step by step, almost like a puzzle. Step 1, you net your $300,000. Step 2, you max out the employee limit for your solo 401k. That's $23,500 taken right off the top. Step 3, you switch hats, act as the employer, and contribute roughly 25% of your net income. Finally, Step 4, if you happen to be 50 or older, you drop in that extra $7,500 catch-up. Just using the solo 401k structure alone, you are easily sheltering over $70,000. Pretty amazing, right? But hold on, we aren't at $90,000 yet.
Which brings us to Section 3, the final layer, the QBI deduction.
So QBI stands for Qualified Business Income. The source material outlines that eligible self-employed physicians can utilize a permanent 23% QBI deduction, which was solidified under the One Big Beautiful Budget Act of 2025. What this law practically means for you is that you can deduct roughly 23% of your qualified business income directly from your taxable income. Now, there are income thresholds and some kind of complex phase-outs for specified service trades like medicine, but if applied correctly, the savings potential here is just massive.
Look at this visual. It's wild. Without a strategy, that full $300,000 is completely exposed to federal income tax. But by stacking those solo 401k contributions and then layering that QBI deduction right on top, your taxable income drops all the way down to roughly $210,000. That is over $90,000 completely sheltered from federal income tax this year. Just incredible.
So how do you actually choose your arsenal? Well, the solo 401k gives you maximum contribution power and those highly valuable age 50-plus catch-ups. The SEP-IRA, on the other hand, is great if you just want simpler administration and prefer a strictly percentage-based approach. But here is the absolute non-negotiable prerequisite. You must work with a 1099 healthcare CPA. Calculating QBI phase-outs and dual-status 401k contributions is a complex puzzle, and honestly, getting it wrong is incredibly expensive. A specialized CPA isn't an expense. They are an absolute investment.
When you put all these pieces together, it completely transforms the financial trajectory of your career. Having real financial discipline during your high-earning travel years is exactly what makes the leap to 1099 work truly worthwhile. As you build this system out, the tax savings don't just feel like a happy accident. Like the source material says, they feel like active wealth defense. You are keeping the money you earned and putting it to work for your own future.
Which really leaves us with the most important question you have to ask yourself after reviewing this explainer today. Are you paying taxes on money you could be keeping? Think about it. If you don't have a solo 401k or a SEP-IRA set up and you haven't modeled out your QBI deduction, the answer is yes. But now you have the exact blueprint to fix it.